Hello, and welcome to Improbable Things. I'm J. Grace Pennington, and this is my podcast where I share 6 improbable thoughts before breakfast, which consists of 6 thoughts about reading, writing, or storytelling in general. So I've been off for a couple weeks, first with Thanksgiving and then with sickness, but now I'm back and ready to get started. Number 1, as I mentioned, I had a couple weeks where I wasn't able to record or didn't record. And then honestly, it just has been a struggle lately because I'm already getting up early for my Bible reading and prayer devotions. And then to do my podcast, I have to get up extra early, not by a lot, but by a little bit. And I am very tired these days. Just the baby and the holidays and all the kids and everything just makes me very tired. And so I've had a little bit of trouble motivating myself and feeling that it's worthwhile to do the podcast. But so if you are on Spotify, you probably have seen your Spotify Wrapped showing you all the, your stats as far as like your top song and your top artist and all that. So if you're not a podcaster, you may not know that if you use Spotify's podcast app, which I do, you get your own Wrapped about your podcast. And so I saw mine a few days ago, and it was very encouraging to me that it is worthwhile, even if I have a small audience right now, because I do enjoy doing it, and to know that there are people that also enjoy listening to it was enough to make me keep wanting to, get up earlier that one day a week. So I thought I would just share those stats with you that were encouraging to me. So I found out that for 11 of my listeners have put me in their top 10 podcasts, that 10 listeners have me in their top 5 podcasts, and that 5 listeners have me listed as their top podcast. Or I'm their, the number 1 podcast they listen to. And so that was just so encouraging and motivating to see that this is worthwhile to do, and that these little chats are something that someone other than me has been enjoying. And so anyway, I just wanted to thank all of you that have been listening and that enjoy each of these episodes, because it really means so much to me, and it makes me feel like there's, just knowing that there's someone other than me that cares about some of these improbable thoughts that I share is just wonderful. So thank you all so much. Number 2, I thought I would give a little just general update on my current work in progress, which is my Valentine's Day novella, which is due in about a week. So I'm finishing up edits. I got it back from my editor. In case you don't remember, it's called Southeaster Lodge, and it's based on Jane Austen's book, Northanger Abbey. So thankfully, my editor really liked it, and he was super, super helpful, as always, on just catching those things that need a little work. And so I've been going over those edits, and I think it was funny because I told some of my friends as I was writing it, it just seemed like the most boring story of all time. And as almost always happens, when I was going back through it for rewrites, I was like, this is actually fine. I'm actually enjoying this. Like, why did I think it was so bad? So I don't know why that always happens, but it's been a relief to see that the few people that have read it have enjoyed it, and that even myself going back through it have found it, kind of sweet. So hopefully other readers will think so as well. Number 3, as we near the end of the year, I'm starting to, of course, think about plans for next year. One thing I've already decided is that for a while, and certainly for next year, I'm not going to be accepting any more projects with other people. I've done some projects this year, the Valentine's collection, some promotional things with other authors, things like that. And it's all been wonderful, and they're people that I really love to work with and things that I really wanted to do. But it's just been a huge challenge to do those kinds of things that have hard and fast deadlines and other people relying on me when my days and nights can be so unpredictable. And when, as I've talked about a lot, like I always want to put my kids first. And so if someone's sick or, nap time isn't going well today, or just, however the day looks, I may just not. Writing is a part of my life and it's important to me and I prioritize it, but sometimes it's just not going to happen as consistently as I might prefer. And so I need to have the freedom to adjust and to have like extra wiggle room and change plans and deadlines and things like that. So at least for a while, and certainly for 2024, I'm just going to be working on my own projects. And specifically for me, I really want to focus in on the Firmament series. I really want to get 2 books out again next year. Obviously, I'd love more than 2, but I really don't want to get too ambitious in this stage of life that I'm in. And so I've mapped it out what my month-to-month goals are going to look like next year. And I think, Lord willing, it should be simple for me to, just doing a small amount of work each day to get a couple more books out next year. So that's my goal, and I will obviously be keeping all of you updated along the way. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I am super excited about this next book and already do have the first chapter written. So that's a good start. I've been doing a lot of brainstorming and a little bit of outlining for it as well. And there's some things in it that I'm just really looking forward to. So yep, we'll see how next year goes. And number 4, I know I've been talking about doing school with my oldest and how that's going and how she can tend to be perfectionist and very driven and frustrated when things aren't going right, etc. Well, what's interesting is my second, who just turned 4 last week, she's never been like that, at least not about school type things. Like a few times, I haven't really done any official school with her, but a few times I would sit down with her with like pre-K worksheets, like tracing lines and shapes and things like that. And she just had no interest in it. She didn't care about trying to, stick with the dotted lines. Like she just didn't seem motivated at all. So I thought, it's just going to be, it's going to be different with her. She's not going to be motivated the same way. And while that's definitely true, I have seen a shift lately. And then actually, a couple days ago, she asked if she could do some school specifically, which she hasn't asked before. And I got out a little book that I used to do with my oldest. And it basically just has you trace letters and then you try to draw the letters yourself. And so she all of a sudden was able to really do the tracing, like carefully following the lines, like, was clearly really working at it. It looked great. But then she couldn't do the ones where you're supposed to write it on your own. And she was burst into tears. She was crying because she couldn't do it. It was just so sad and yet so sweet. And I remember so well being a little kid. And my number one memory about this is that I couldn't draw a pointy A. Like the top of my letter A was like always rounded. And I was so mad about it when I was little. And so I sat down with her and talked to her and I told her, hey, that's what learning is. Learning means that you can't do it right away and we have to practice, and everybody when they learn new things don't do it right and don't do it perfect, and that's totally fine. And then I pointed out to her, like, you didn't used to be able to do tracing and now you can. So it ended up, I sat down and ordered her a book that just has tracing, and I used it for my oldest as well. It just has like giant letters that you can trace. And so anyway, she's super excited about that. But I know I've mentioned many times, watching my kids learn and grow and develop is just one of my absolute favorite things of all time. And seeing how one day they can't do something and then all of a sudden they can. And so I was just trying to encourage her with that progress that she's made. And it's just, yeah, I think she's really going to enjoy this tracing letter book, and hopefully it'll encourage her to see that she already is learning and growing. So, number 5 on my currently reading, I got the book Truly Madly Guilty by Liane Moriarty from the library a bit ago because it's the only one of her books that I haven't read yet. So I thought I might as well grab it and read it. And I'm maybe like 2/3 of the way through at this point. But it's just so interesting because honestly, at least at this point, I don't love the characters. There's a lot of things I don't really love about the book, but Moriarty is just so skilled at like pulling you into a story and like dragging you forward. Like I cannot put this book down. And it's so interesting because basically she starts off by letting you know that a few months before the opening of the story, something really huge happened and it changed all these people's lives forever, but she doesn't tell you what that was. And then she'll flash back to that day, so they're like, oh, on the day of the barbecue, something happened. And then she'll flash back to the day of the barbecue and give you like a little bit of the day and then but not get you quite to whatever it was that happened, and then pull back to the present and you're seeing the aftermath of whatever this horrible thing was. And oh no, that day at the barbecue, if only we hadn't gone, if only things had been different, and then flash back to the day of the barbecue and give you just a little more. And she just keeps like, I think it was about halfway through the book before she finally reveals what actually happened that was so traumatic. And now you're still finding out more information. And I'm also getting the vibe that there's something missing, something we still haven't been told. And it's just crazy. Like I was telling my friend, it's weird because it's honestly feels very frustrating to me while I'm reading it. I'm like, okay, what in the world happened at this stupid barbecue? Just tell us. And I'm trying to guess what it is. But at the same time, this is what I love in fiction, where it can really like suck you in. And so, yeah, she's very good at that. And it makes me want to definitely hone my own skills in sucking people into a story by the way you choose to reveal information, which I know I've talked a little bit about recently. So anyway, I haven't gotten to the end yet. And a lot of her books, I go up to the very end not knowing whether I'm going to love them or hate them, so I can't really give any verdict on it yet whatsoever, but I'm sure I'm going to finish it very soon because I am just speeding through this one. So number 6, one thing that this book does have me thinking about, and I've thought a lot about this in the past too, is how often in fiction you have to make the exact thing the audience does not want to happen. Like that's what you need to have, in the story. And so many times, like I'm watching a movie or reading a book and you can see something coming and you're going, no, don't let that happen. And a lot of times that is exactly what needs to happen for the story, even though like it's painful to see or to read or think about or whatever. And in this book in particular, I will say she pulled back from making the absolute worst thing happen. So I appreciated that. And that made me think that there is a balance here, because I do find sometimes if you like think something horrible is about to happen and you just, you can't stand it. It's like watching a train wreck. You can't look away. And then, crisis averted. Everything's totally fine. You're left kind of feeling dissatisfied. And you know that like somehow that the story has not really reached its potential. Like those moments are often so much of the depth of a story that really brings about character growth and that really makes the audience think and all those kinds of things. And yet there are definitely times where it can go too far. And without giving any spoilers, I can say in this book, if it had gone that far, I would not have been happy. I don't even know if I would have finished reading the book because it would have been just too much. Like it would have been too upsetting because, real life can also be quite upsetting and very tragic and awful things happen. And we do read fiction for an escape. So we don't want it to quite reflect reality. And yet at the same time, if it doesn't have those moments at all, it does feel empty because it doesn't reflect real life enough. So I've definitely had those moments. I know I did a blog post about it years ago after I was watching the show House, and one thing happened that was just too much for me, and it was too sad. And I think one thing that I talked about in that post is that in fiction, we want our tragedies to be packaged in a way where we can see the purpose and the meaning in a way we cannot always in real life. And I think that is partly where the balance lies. Like, whatever it is that happens, like, you have to be willing to go there in a story, but it also has to be in such a way that the reader can find meaning and purpose in it. Otherwise, it's too much. And it's just hard to walk that balance between, and of course, people are going to have different opinions and different comfort levels, and you're not going to please everyone, but just as a general principle, walking that line between being real and even raw and painful in those tragic things and hard things, and yet not tipping over into the territory where it's just too much, or where you can't see why it happens and things like that. And I've had to think about that myself in the Firmament series, by when characters die or when just things happen. And sometimes it's hard as the writer, like, oh, I just would like my characters to be happy. But that you have to push them to those places where it is hard, and that is where there is growth and there is beauty and redemption that can come out of those things. So anyway, just lots of thoughts spurred by the book and by that whole topic in general, and something that I want to continue trying to balance in my writing as well. So thank you all so much for listening. Again, I so appreciate everyone that takes the time to listen to this, and everyone who enjoys these times. I want to keep doing it. It may be a little spotty the rest of the year because, of course, this is a really busy time with the holidays and everything, and I do have deadlines coming up and stuff. But definitely this is something that I want to prioritize moving forward. And again, just thank you all so much. And as always, if anyone has any thoughts to share about if you've read a book that sucks you in that way, or thoughts about how fiction has to have that balance between, reality and yet not going too dark. Any thoughts about that, I would love to hear and discuss with you, because that's why I do this podcast, is because I love all things story and writing and storytelling, and I just want to share that love and those rambling thoughts of mine with others. So again, thank you for listening. Hope that everyone has a great day and a great weekend ahead, and stay improbable. Bye.